darkmyths.org and Neopolis Media Group proudly present to you the Lone Gunman Podcast, featuring your host, Rob Clark, where research comes to shine and myths come to die. Stay tuned. Be right there.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 180 of the Lone Gunman Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Clark. Welcome to the show. Well, I wasn't exactly planning on doing this show. Well, part of it anyway. We are going to talk about some real documentation and research here today, but before we do, it appears I need to address some things to clear the air a little bit. So let's start with the Joan Mellon interview. I appreciate it. It's truly my honor to have someone of her stature on my show, first of all. And I appreciate her giving me her time. I wish she would have been a little more forthcoming, with the concept that, talking about things in your book or books that you've written, you spent a lot of time and effort and money and research to do, coming on a show like mine to talk about it inspires people, if you do a good job talking about things that are in your book and research you've done, it inspires them to want to go out and buy your book. It's a pretty simple concept, and it's very discouraging to have somebody come on here and, well, just read the book. Obviously you didn't read the book. Just read the book. It's in the book. While, that's a somewhat effective ploy. It's always better to have a nice back and forth and entertaining show, and I didn't want it to be one that she had done before where it's the same old rigmarole, same questions asked, same format, this and that. I wanted a Lone Gunman style interview with Joan Mellon, and I tried. That's all I can do. That's the best I can do, is I can try. I did get good feedback on it. People enjoyed it. And I'm sorry it was so short. Joan's getting up there in years, and it's perfectly fine. She didn't want to go an hour or two. That's understandable. And that's not what I'm upset about. I just wish I could have picked her brain a little bit more. Because, she has met Garrison, spent time in New Orleans with Garrison. She has interviewed, Carlos Brunier, Thomas Beckham, and L.J. Delsa, and all these interesting people. And it's very rare, to be able to be blessed to have some time to talk to somebody about that stuff. And for them not to be very forthcoming with it, it's disappointing to me. It's disappointing to you guys. And I just wanted to apologize for that. But hopefully, you enjoyed the interview for what it was. And, we move on from there. And I'm sorry about the sound quality. We tried to do it over Skype. It just didn't work out that way. I had to pull an audible and record it over the phone through the microphone. So that's why, things kind of sounded the way they did. I tried to boost the audio as much as I could, which led to a little bit of distortion on Joan's end, but it's the best I could do with what I got at the time. I'm not going to not do an interview with her. I wanted to at least do something and get it out there. So, we move on. I've had Carmine Savastano on this show multiple times. He is my most prolific guest on the Lone Gunman podcast, and I consider Carmine a friend, a confederate, and one hell of a meticulous, detailed, and deliberate researcher. When it comes to the facts and documents, and he's done many great things for this research community. And it's my pleasure to be involved in any capacity in the Neapolis Media Group, as you hear at the beginning of this show, every time you listen. And that's not going to change. And to preface what I'm about to say, I will say that I have not actually spoken to Carmine since his blog post came out on January 15th, entitled "Number One: The Casebook of CAA Savastano. Number One: The Case of the Seven Trophies." Now, I have noticed some things on my Twitter feed from Carmine that seemed a little out of character. Very weird, disjointed, out of context comments. But I'm not really too hip on Twitter. Yes, I do have an account there. Yes, I do post my shows there. It's more or less just to let people who follow me see when a new show comes out. They can click on it, download it, and listen. Pretty simple. As far as actually getting on Twitter and going through my feed of people I follow, or following people and reading things and engaging, it's not really my bag. Occasionally I'll hop on there and look at my notifications and be like, okay, so so-and-so started following you. So-and-so commented on this post, and I'll answer. But as far as really paying attention, and engaging on Twitter, I don't really do it a whole lot. And I noticed, there was quite a few comments in my Twitter feed that really seemed out of place and made me ponder, like, what the hell is going on here? And then I start getting bombarded by people asking me what the hell is going on with Carmine and this whole blog post of his and his postings on Facebook and seemingly out of character behavior. And of course, I don't know. I can only speculate at this point. All of us here in the JFK community, whether it be on the Lone Nutter side or the conspiracy side of things, we all have our beliefs. We all have our leanings. We all have our compatriots, that we gravitate towards, who believe much in the same way we do. We all have our quote-unquote enemies, enemies of the truth, as Robert Kennedy said, who we deem, harmful to the community. And, many of the people that Carmine speaks about in his blog post, I've had blocked for many, many years. Many years. Be it Andrea Skolnick or Ralph Sinkay or, any of these nut jobs, basically, that are out there. As far as one allegation that Carmine makes in here that Andrea Skolnick is truly Robert Morrow, I'm not 100% sure about. I did talk to Andrea on the phone many years ago, or maybe it was somebody portraying Andrea Skolnick as a female on the phone. I don't know. But I definitely talked to a female who portrayed herself as Andrea Skolnick on the phone when I butted heads with her many years ago, just to try to iron things out and talk to her and try to get her to come on the show and have a conversation. And of course that never happened, but behind the scenes I did talk to her on the phone. So Carmine's not one to make wild, crazy allegations. He's a big stickler for evidence and documentation. So I'm going to trust in the fact that he has some of this stuff, and that this is not some willy-nilly paranoid-esque been in lockdown too long craziness. Other than that, I really am not sure what to say about it. I've had my suspicions as well of a number of the people that he speaks about on here as well. Again, I consider some people that he calls out my friends. Bart Camp, for instance, has been a big friend of mine and a friend of this show. And even though him and Carmine don't get together and have butted heads in the past, that's got nothing to do with me. Okay? Me and Carmine are friends. Me and Bart are friends. I don't... And Bart knows that... He knows that we'll probably never be able to prove that Prayer Man is Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay? He knows that. Short of a very clear freaking photograph of that becoming available, it's always going to be informed speculation, and there will always be questions. But you can't discount all of these circumstantial evidence pointing to the fact that it was likely somebody that worked there. And when you account for the movements of all the other employees in the building, it all boils down to a few suspects. And you can't just say definitively for sure that that's what it is, but you can lay out the evidence and you can present a case about it. And if Carmine doesn't believe that way, then that's up to Carmine, and we all have different opinions. That's what makes us all different. But true hate and true villainy in this JFK community, it's tough, man. It's very tough. I'm an opinionated guy, and I don't hold much in. I'll wear it right on my sleeve, and I'll let you know how I really feel about things. And this is part of where this is coming from me. It's hard to see, when your friends are involved in things like this. And if what Carmine's saying is true, and he has the documentation and evidence to back it up, then it's very disturbing. Very, very disturbing. I can't say that I am sure, I'm 100% sure that there are frauds in the JFK community. I'm 100% sure there's controlled opposition in the JFK community. I am 100% sure there is COINTELPRO, counterintelligence provocateurs in the JFK community. 100% sure. The question is why? Well, it's so the truth never comes out. It's to muddy the waters. It's just like anything else. We see it in politics today with Antifa and Trump supporters and all this Black Lives Matter stuff. It's always going to be around. It's always going to be a problem. You're even going to have people who may not even be attached to any government entity or agency take it upon themselves to do things like this because they lead very sad lives and really have nothing else going on for themselves, and somehow get off on this, by trying to ruin other people. And if there's one thing I know for sure in the JFK community, that when you're in it, you spend a lot of time, if you're really serious about it, you're going to spend a lot of time reading and researching and networking and trying to figure things out to get to the truth. And trust me, a lot of people have come and did it, spent their entire lives doing it, and died never finding out. And it probably will happen to this generation of researchers. We'll spend our whole lives talking about it, researching, reading, writing, and dying never knowing the truth. Because I'm sure the truth has been buried long ago in this case. It's not like the government's going to let out a document that is just going to give us the smoking gun evidence we need to say, ha, I told you, it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald, it was a conspiracy, and that's the end of it. It's never going to happen. So if you're waiting for those document releases, I don't know what to tell you, because it's never going to happen. You know, the best we can do is take what we got and try to piece together what happened and try to get to the truth that way. You know, I try not to get in the middle of stuff, you know, and I don't want to be in the middle of this, period. You know, I've got enough going on with what I do and what I'm interested in and what I talk about here and whatever else I got going on in my real life, you know. And so for all those out there that want to ask me what's going on, I'm telling you, I don't know. So until I talk to Carmine or till he wants to come on my show and explain all this out and lay it out for everybody, ask him. He's very available on Twitter and Facebook. You know, as far as, you know, some of these people that he's mentioned, you know, have been high suspects from day one. You know, Trine Day, Judith Mary Baker and her minions. These people with the fake names, like Ray, and Rule, whatever his name is. Like I said, half these people I've had blocked for years because it's a waste of time to deal with them and their nonsense. And I don't even want to bother with it anymore. It's a waste of time to fight these people. You know, it's best to stay in your own lane, do your own thing, and let the chips fall where they may. You know, and Carmine is a very intelligent, very meticulous researcher. He's a great writer. And, you know, the only words of advice that I could give him is, you know, do your thing. You know, but, you know, when things start to affect you in your real life, it's not always that easy. And I understand that, you know. You know, when you're trying to do your best and you constantly get berated and argued with and scorned and made fun of, you know, we've all been there for either our beliefs about the case or our beliefs in life or our political beliefs or our views on religion. We've all been there. You know, and you're never going to change anybody else's mind by arguing with them and trying to lay facts out. I've learned that the hard way over the years. You're never going to change anybody's mind. You know, they have to change that for themselves. And that applies to just about anything in life, and not just with the case, you know. Yeah, as we get older, it's, well, at least I know it's true for me. You know, I just do my own thing. I get on here and I talk about what I want to talk about, and I engage with who I want to engage with, and that's it. The rest is by the wayside. You know, the crazies fall by the wayside. They're either blocked or forgotten about. Eventually they drop off. It is what it is. You know, I think Carmine does great research, and his writings are fascinating. And I love talking to him. He's a funny dude. He's, you know, he's intelligent, you know. But, you know, I also like talking to Bart. He's a great researcher. He's done many great things for the research community, putting all these documents online from Malcolm Blunt and, you know, his own research into the lunchroom encounter and School Book Depository and the movements of Oswald, and you just can't discount it, that because somebody doesn't like somebody else. I have no problem at all getting along with different people, even though maybe these two guys don't get along. I get along with them in my individual deal. And, that subject's been broached before. I said, I hope you don't mind. I'm having Bart on. I want to talk to him about this. No, that's fine. It is what it is. And it's not like I would ever allow either one of them to get on my show and badmouth the other one. That's not it. When Carmine's on here, we talk about whatever Carmine wants to talk about. And when Bart's on here, we talk about whatever Bart wants to talk about. And it's case related. Keep all the fluff out of it and in the forums and in the groups. And, I know both of them have been ousted from groups and forums, for all the various things. And, I don't care. It doesn't involve me. I don't care. It's none of my business. My business is this show. And the only reason I'm involved is I'm part of the Neapolis Media Group with Carmine and Chuck and Mike Swanson. And, I just from knowing Carmine all these years and talking to him, about various stuff, not just JFK stuff. I'm just as lost as you guys are trying to figure this out. It's a very fantastical thing that he's laying out here, talking about Kazab and Five Eyes and an Angleton program, but he lays it out the way he wants to lay it out, and that's fine. And he's had his personal experiences with these people, and I can't discount them, so a lot of it, rings true with me. The way these people act, the way they attack people. Some people are just shady like that, pretend to be your friend, and then all of a sudden they just disappear off the face of the earth. You're like, okay, what the hell was that about? I don't know. Time to move on. But anyway, I just wanted to get on here and address some things because I'm being asked now about it, and the truth is, I don't know. I haven't seen anything. I haven't talked to Carmine about anything. People are bringing it to my attention and asking me questions, and I'm just as clueless as everybody else. I do not know. So until he wants to reach out to me and come on the show and talk about it, and we can just sit back and wait and see what else he posts. I can certainly understand where he's coming from. To be part of the research community and a contributing part of the research community is a very special thing. To be recognized for it is an even more special thing. And, I commend everything that Carmine's done to date to further this case along. I commend anybody that's part of a forum, be it the Ed Forum, be it RKC. Those guys, they have their own style. A lot of people don't suffer fools lightly, and that's fine too. They can be brash. They can, but there has been a lot of good ideas come from that camp. I think Greg Parker has done a lot of good work in the case. I think Bart's done a lot of great work in the case. I think Ed Ledoux's done a lot of great work in the case. These guys think outside the box and, take a new approach at looking at things and putting the evidence together, and the world's a better place for it. Bottom line. So you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, is what I'm trying to say. And a lot of these elements that Carmine speaks about, like I said, some of them I have no problem with believing what's going on here, because I've seen it with my own eyes. Judith Very Baker is a very contriving woman, and the people that she has convinced, her minions or whatever you want to call them, or who believe in her so much that they take on her cause or what have you, and pretend to be these other people online and spread her story around and try to discredit other people who try to prove that Judith Very Baker is a fraud. I very much believe in, because I've seen it myself. They've come after me before. I've seen it. But doing a podcast like this, I really don't care. All it does is make people want to listen to me. So, you want to talk shit about me? That's great. You want to say this and say that about me? I don't care. All it does is make people listen to the show to figure out and find out more and why. So, the more people listen, I'm good with that. Either way. If you're an idiot and you want to reach out to me, I block you, or I don't answer your email, or whatever the case may be, and I move on. And that's it. So it is what it is. And that's all I'm going to say about it until we know more, or until Carmine wants to come on here and lay it all out. I'm more than willing to listen. And, because that's the kind of relationship I have with the guy. I respect Carmine very much as a writer, a researcher, an author, and a friend. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if he's been going through all this stuff in the past 7 years, then he's got every right to come out about it. I just hope that he has his ducks in a row and can back up everything he's saying, because I see online here, Andrea Skolnick's already threatened him and told him to make sure he has a good lawyer. So, I hope it never comes to that. And very rarely do you see truth bombs dropped on a community like this, and everybody's mind's blown, including mine. So, like I said, at this point, I don't know what's going on. But like I said, I stand behind my friend, and when he's ready to come on the show and get down to it, we'll do it. And that's all I got to say about that. So, 'tis what it is. All right, folks. Now, here's what I want to talk about today. Lee Harvey Oswald's paraffin tests. And these are, of course, the wax molds taken from the hands of Lee Harvey Oswald and from his right cheek. They were sent to the Oak Ridge Laboratories in Tennessee for neutron activation analysis to determine whether or not he had fired a gun recently. So I came across this big pile of documents about these paraffin tests, and then something else jumped out at me right off the bat. And this is from March 27th, 1964. And it is an FBI document to a Mr. Conrad from R.B. Jevons. It says, in accordance with the verbal request of Mr. Melvin Eisenberg of the President's Commission and with prior approval, Special Agents Henry Ryberger and Joseph Gallagher met with Mr. Eisenberg on 3/26/64 to discuss spectrographic examinations conducted on materials relating to the assassination of President Kennedy. So when they did the neutron activation test, they also sent a couple other things to the Oak Ridge laboratories to be spectroanalyzed, including bullet fragments from the Walker shooting and pieces of large bullet fragments recovered from inside the limousine. And what was determined, Heisberger discussed the spectrographic comparison examinations, which he conducted in the laboratory. Heisberger advised that the lead alloy of the bullet, that means what it's made out of, recovered from the attempted shooting of General Walker was different from the lead alloy of the large bullet fragment recovered from the car in which President Kennedy was shot. Okay, so that right there is a huge, huge statement. So, okay, either, one of the two here, either the bullet recovered from General Walker's attempted shooting was not from a Mannlicher Carcano rifle, or the lead fragment from the limousine was not from a Mannlicher Carcano rifle. So it can't be both. Mannlicher Carcano ammunition, they never did prove where Lee Harvey Oswald ever bought any ammo for this rifle that he supposedly ordered. But they damn sure crucified him and tied him to the General Walker shooting after the fact. After the assassination, after he's already dead. So if he used his Mannlicher Carcano rifle and he fired a copper-jacketed, lead alloy Mannlicher Carcano bullet at General Walker, it is likely that he would have used the same box of ammunition or the same bullets that comprise the Mannlicher Carcano ammunition to fire at President Kennedy. But it states very plainly here that the lead alloy of the bullet recovered from the attempted shooting of General Walker was different from the lead alloy of a large bullet fragment recovered in the car from which President Kennedy was shot. Gallagher advised Mr. Eisenberg that spectrographic examinations of the bullet fragments recovered from the wound in President Kennedy's head and from the vehicle was riding at the time of his assassination were composed of the same chemical elements. So what they're saying is that fragments taken from the inside of Kennedy's skull and fragments found in the limo were the same, but that the bullet from the Walker shooting was not. Which means that either Oswald never shot at Walker, or if he did, then the Carcano was not used to shoot at Kennedy. One of the two has to be true. It goes on to state, as reported in my memorandum of March 17th, Jevons to Conrad, Gallagher discussed with Mr. Eisenberg the neutron activation analysis of the paraffin cast from Oswald. This technique, you will recall, revealed deposits on the cast characteristic of powder residues. However, it is not possible to distinguish the powder residues of the rifle cartridges from the powder residues of the revolver cartridges. It was in connection with this examination that Mr. Eisenberg then discussed with Gallagher a letter of Dr. Paul Abersold, Director of the Division of Isotopes Development Atomic Energy Commission, to Assistant Attorney General Herbert Miller, which was dated December 11, 1963, and subsequently forwarded to the Commission. He read from this letter the following. He would hope soon to have more details on whether the method, that is, the neutron activation analysis, will give useful information to distinguish between smoke deposits from revolvers and those from rifles. By more of their distribution on the body of the person firing them, and by the levels of antimony and barium, and perhaps other elements deposited. Mr. Eisenberg then asked if more detailed background was available at this date. It was pointed out by Gallagher that Ebersold's letter was written prior to the actual activation analysis examinations of Oswald's casts. No elements were found during those tests to distinguish between a rifle and a revolver. Mr. Gallagher further pointed out that the data in the present instance were further complicated by Oswald's firing of the revolver subsequent to the firing of the rifle, and by the fact that the casts have been chemically treated and washed prior to receipt for neutron activation analysis. Nothing has come to our attention, and to our knowledge, nothing has been done subsequent to those examinations which would further assist in the interpretation of the data obtained from the activation analysis of the paraffin cast from Oswald. So, basically what they're saying here is that even though the neutron activation test can determine whether or not a gun was fired, they can't determine whether or not they can't distinguish a rifle from a handgun per se. You know, this was all a very new thing back in the early 60s, a very new science, if you will. You know, they were still trying to figure out the particulates of it, and you know, I'm sure through testing they could configure how the gunpowder residue would have been distributed after it was fired on a person, you know, using a handgun versus a rifle. It's interesting that they only tested Oswald's right cheek, you know, because he would have had his cheek, you know, on the rifle, lining up the sights, and all that. Now, a couple shows ago, it occurred to me, and I saw, you know, something that his mother had written that Oswald was left-handed. This could have meant that he fired the rifle backwards than normal. Because, of course, they don't make left-handed guns. Well, I mean, they do now, but I'm pretty sure they didn't then. It was kind of a special thing, you know, to have the bolt put on the left side of the gun instead of the right. Either way, it's interesting to me they only tested his right cheek and not his left. I'm wondering if they would have found anything on his left cheek. Now, of course, they say they found stuff on his hands, but the components that make up gunpowder, barium, antimony, different chemical elements, is also found in ink. And the school book depository was an old air conditioning manufacturing plant, and before that it was I believe it was a coffee plant. So there was always a lot of heavy machinery in and around the school book depository, and trust me, it didn't look like, you know, the place had ever been cleaned really good. And of course, handling boxes all day. There's ink printed on the boxes. You're going to pick up trace elements of things on your hands, whether it be just walking up the stairs and grabbing a railing or a shelf or a box or a cart or who knows. It's very hard to distinguish, you know, nitrates left behind by gunpowder residue as averse to you know, what would standardly be found on a human skin working in that building doing that kind of job. So it's a very murky murky analysis, to say the least. But when they took these 7 casts from Lee Harvey Oswald, okay, they were very meticulous about this stuff, and the following items were received from your office with your letter dated 12/13/63. Obtained from Dallas Police Department, Dallas, Texas, a Maxwell House coffee can containing paraffin wax, 1 1/2 inch paintbrush, 3 1/4 pound blocks of golf wax paraffin, a sample of diphenylbenzidine used by personnel of Dallas County Criminal Investigation Lab, Dallas, Texas. The golf wax paraffin and diphenylbenzidine samples were not retained since they were not evidentiary items. The following items was received from your office with your letter dated 12/21/63. A plastic bottle containing tap water from Dallas, Texas. This water sample was similarly used only for control purposes and was not retained. The paraffin casts Q53A through Q53G were analyzed by Neutron activation analysis at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, Research Reactor Site, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The Union Carbide Corporation personnel at this site who worked on the actual analysis of these specimens with the FBI examiners were Dr. Frank Dyer and Mr. Joel F. Emery. You have been previously furnished photographs of specimens Q53A through Q58. These are the only specimens which have been assigned C designations. If a report has been previously submitted regarding any of the above exhibits, you should prepare a letterhead memorandum suitable for dissemination identifying the report in which the pertinent information is set forth. Now, there was a big to-do when I think the results got leaked, and members of the Dallas FBI had stated prematurely that the paraffin tests were positive, that Oswald had definitely killed the president, and there's FBI documents, tracking this down, trying to disseminate who said what and why and when. Now, on November the 27th, 1963, paraffin casts were obtained from Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay? By this time, he was already deceased. So, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. But Q53A was from the back of his right hand. 53B was from the front or palm side of right hand. 53C was from the back of the left hand. 53D, front or palm side of left hand. 53K was the long, narrow section side of right thumb. Q5F from a long, triangular section of the side of the left thumb. And Q53G was from a thin slab from the right cheek. And then the other Qs, 54 to 58, were the paper sacks of the type in which the casts from Oswald were stored from 11/23 to 11/27. Okay, so sorry, let me back up there. The paraffin casts were done on the 23rd, so he was not dead yet. The question that they had was whether or not he had been allowed to wash his hands after he'd been in custody. The paraffin casts Q53A through Q53G were analyzed by neutron activation analysis to determine if these paraffin casts from Oswald, which were made, chemically treated and washed by the Dallas law enforcement authorities, bore any deposits which could be specifically associated with the rifle cartridge cases found in the Texas School Book Depository following the president's assassination, As a result of these examinations, the deposits found on the paraffin casts from the hands and cheek of Oswald could not be specifically associated with the rifle cartridges. Elements such as barium and antimony were found on the cast. However, these same elements were found in powder residues both from the above rifle cartridge cases and from the revolver cartridge cases which were fired from Oswald's revolver reportedly between the time of the assassination and the time of his apprehension. No characteristic elements were found by neutron activation analysis which could be used to distinguish the rifle from the revolver cartridges. In view of the fact that the paraffin casts were not made until after the reported firing and handling of the fired revolver, no significance could be attached to the residues found on the cast other than the conclusion that barium and antimony in these residues are present in amounts greater than would be expected to be found on the hands of an individual who has not recently fired a weapon or handled a fired weapon. No identifiable particles of powder residues were found in the envelopes and sacks Q54 through 58. The submitted evidence is being retained. So, they have taken it, they have sent it, and they have analyzed it. They even went so far as to obtain samples of tap water from Dallas, Texas. That's apparently what they washed the casts in. So we talked about Mr. Eisenberg earlier, one of the commission lawyers. During a pre-testimony conference with Special Agent Cortland Cunningham on March 30th, stated that he would like the FBI lab to conduct paraffin tests using diphenylbenzidine with the C-14 assassination rifle prior to Special Agent Robert Frazier's testimony on March 31st. He was advised that these tests would be conducted. Prior tests of this nature were conducted in the lab using the technique of neutron activation. Mr. Eisenberg requested the above test as a matter of record since there had been considerable publicity in regard to this matter. Mr. Eisenberg also asked Mr. Cunningham to have the Dallas office of the FBI contact the Dallas Police Department in an effort to locate any additional cartridge cases found by the Dallas Police Department during the investigation of Officer J.D. Tippett's murder. It is pointed out that the lab has received 4 bullets alleged to have been removed from the body of Officer Tippett. 3 of these bullets were manufactured by Winchester Western, and 1 of these bullets was manufactured by Remington Peters. The 4 cartridge cases found near the scene of the shooting by the Dallas Police Department were found to consist of 2 Remington Peters and 2 Western cartridge cases. Therefore, a Remington Peters bullet and a Western cartridge case were apparently not recovered from the scene, nor from Oswald's handgun. FBI Dallas has telephonically advised that Lieutenant Carl Day of the Dallas Police Department stated today that all cartridge cases recovered by the police department have been turned over to the Bureau. These, of course, are the ones described above. This information is being furnished to the Commission by letter. Lieutenant Day also advised that it is very possible that a bullet or casing to Oswald's revolver was not found, as such cartridge cases recovered were found by individuals in the area and then turned over to the Dallas Police Department. It is to be noted that the Tippett murder case is strictly a local one under the jurisdiction of the Dallas Police Department and has nothing to do with the FBI. So, the official neutron analysis or nitrite test of the paraffin wax, and this is on a precursory examination by Lieutenant Carl Day. And the test was done to determine if nitrates are present on exhibits. Nitrate patterns consistent with the subject having discharged a firearm were present in Exhibits 2 and 3. The pattern on Exhibit number 3 is typical of patterns produced in firing a revolver. And the analyst was Louis L. Anderson, Dallas City County Criminal Investigation Laboratory, done on 11/23/63. So what had happened was, the paraffin casts were taken from Lee Harvey Oswald on the 23rd, and a nitrate test was done on the casts. These were later sent for a neutron activation test at the Oak Ridge Laboratory in Tennessee to determine, or to try to further determine if they could differentiate between a rifle and a gun. So it says here, this routine test is designed to show if nitrates are present on a subject to verify that he has discharged a firearm. Oswald had a nitrate pattern on his hand consistent with the allegation that he fired the revolver which killed Officer Tippett. A paraffin test taken of the right side of Oswald's face did not reveal any nitrates from having fired a rifle, thus offering no proof that Oswald had recently fired a rifle. And that's their official documentation. So what can we take away from this? If we go by what they say and their official investigation and all that, that Oswald didn't shoot at the president. That he may have killed Tippett, but that's about all they could prove. If your face is down by a rifle as you're aiming and firing it, you're going to have a nitrate discharge land on your face. Did they get lucky? Or did Oswald get lucky and they were testing the wrong side of his face? I would think that, it wouldn't really differentiate between sides of faces because, you'd have gunpowder residue on your face altogether, both sides, in the middle, microscopically that you really couldn't see. Yet they found none on his cheek. So once again, they had themselves a slight conundrum when it comes to investigating the murder of the president. They couldn't prove that he recently fired a rifle. But they also couldn't prove that he hadn't washed his face or his hands while in custody. Was Oswald a heavy wiper? Did they watch him in the bathroom? Was he even cognizant of the fact that he maybe should wash his hands and face to get this gunpowder residue off of himself? I don't know. But I would think that if they found it on his hands, but not his face, then he hadn't washed his face, because when you wash your face with your hands, that would pretty much wash your hands as well. So, very odd stuff. What makes all this neutron activation test and everything even weirder is that on July 26th of 1963, when the real Oswald was in New Orleans, someone visited the Atomic Energy Museum in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and signed the register Lee H. Oswald, USSR, Dallas Road, Dallas, Texas. Which was very, very odd. It's an odd premonition, per se. And when you look at the register of visitors, to the American Museum of Atomic Energy, and you see Lee H. Oswald's signature there, it looks like an authentic signature. It looks like one of his. And there's a lot of other people from Texas visiting that day. And it's not like he is, It added at the end of a register, or it's right in the middle. It's right in the middle of visitors. Now, a copy of this 63 visitors registration at the Old American Museum of Atomic Energy appears to show Lee Harvey Oswald visited the Oak Ridge Museum 4 months before the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The copy surfaced on the morning of the 50th anniversary of the assassination when Gerald Boyd, former manager of the Department of Energy's Oak Ridge office, brought it to a meeting of the East Tennessee Economic Council and showed it around. It created a stir of interest and raised additional questions. In a telephone interview, Boyd said he'd been given a copy of the document about 5 years ago when he was still manager of the DOE's Oak Ridge office. He doesn't remember who at the DOE gave it to him. He said he found it interesting at the time, but didn't do anything with it. It was not something that warranted the Department of Energy to pay attention, said Boyd, now retired from federal service and a vice president with SM Stoller, an environmental firm. It didn't indicate any reason for us to have any concern about it. Boyd said he put the copy of the visitor register away in a drawer and hadn't thought of it again until a few days ago. It was in my office, but I'd forgotten about it, Boyd said, so I took it and showed it to the folks at the ETEC this morning. I wasn't trying to make a big public thing out of it. It's just an interesting factoid and a little chilling. Boyd said he doesn't know where the original document is and suggested it's probably stored in the federal agency's archive somewhere, possibly in Atlanta. He said there's an assumption that the signature is authentic but doesn't know if that has been verified. Other copies of the document have appeared online in recent years at various sites, especially those looking at various conspiracies and suggesting possible Oak Ridge links to the assassination. The museum registration sheet would seem to suggest Oswald was in the presence of a number of other people from Texas. The old museum, which was owned by the Atomic Energy Commission and situated on the Oak Ridge Turnpike, has since been renamed the American Museum of Science and Energy and relocated to its current site on Tulane Avenue. Tim Gown, a librarian and special assistant at Oak Ridge National Lab, said he'd seen a copy of the document online but didn't know what, if any, meaning it may have regarding the JFK assassination. It is definitely interesting, though, Gaines said. It is, considering that 4 months later, the people at Oak Ridge would be trying to prove that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. And who in their right mind would have been impersonating Lee Harvey Oswald at the end of July of 1963? He had just been fired from the Riley Coffee Company. He was jobless. It's hard to prove where he was and when he was there and what he was possibly doing there. I know fraudsters like Judith Very Baker claimed that he had to go there to, get some plutonium so they could kill Castro with it or some nonsense. But the signature looks authentic to me. Maybe he just called a bus up and went to the museum. Took a day trip. Who knows? It's just one of them odd little synchronicities with the Kennedy assassination that we really need to know more about and try to figure out just a little better. Well, folks, that's it for this one. Sorry for babbling on so long, and sometimes it's required. Sometimes it isn't, but anyway, that's it for this one. Episode 180 is in the canister, beamed up to the satellite, down directly to your ears, people. This is your boy. Peace.